Hi guys, and welcome to this video, this live stream about news that I gotta bring the news to you. Yeah guys, it turns out that we were wrong. And what we were wrong about? Well, we were wrong about what actually happens in the story in the Britannia Knights book. Well, some of you pointed out in the comments that this is not about what we thought that it is about, but it's about something else. And we are going to check the passage, like the longer passage, not the small thing, but the longer, so you can get the real context and you will see what happened, because I'm really, really sorry that I also jumped on the wagon and I covered this as it seemed, because I really trusted actually the site also that this came from, that dark place, because the site seems to be very trustworthy so far with all the other news that it delivers. But unlike the other times where they can just post tweets of people and we can see the story unfold of what is being covered, this time it's about a particular passage and it does not show the whole thing. It really doesn't. And when you look at the passage itself, you see it like you think that it is, that there's actual love relationship between a knight and a boy, and we all immediately jumped to the conclusion that it was about obviously something extremely very horrible, criminal and inappropriate. And of course this was also written in a positive light, which made things a lot worse, because it's one thing to world build, present very bad things that are happening in whatever fictional universe that you're talking about, or even if it's not fiction, when you're just reporting on a story. But let's say you're an author, you want to write about how bad a particular universe is in a way, or time in history or whatever, and you come up with the worst things possible. I wouldn't do it, really. I mean, if I was an author, I will skip at least those types of things, because they will not serve the story well. But at least, guys, in 40k and in other universes, to my knowledge, such things that are the worst things that we can possibly imagine, they are depicted in a negative light. So here my argument also was that this is depicted in a positive light, which is the horrible thing. But as I said, guys, we're going to take a look at the passage and we're going to see what this is really about. And I also reached out to Chainsword over on Twitter, who is very active. And of course, he made the list about the 40k woke and anti-woke authors. He also made the list about the 40k woke, non-woke, in the green, in the red, YouTubers. And I was in the green, which I'm very happy about. And I'm very thankful for that inclusion in the list. He knows those authors. He knows how these people write. He knows what they've done, how they ruined other stories. I've read some reviews as well of people that actually read this particular book and they said that the book is bad in general. I mean, not about even the story, but about the book. That's not really interesting. Of course, that is up to personal opinions, but this author, he does seems to write a bit like George R. R. Martin, which is not very much to my liking, because there's sometimes some sentences that you can misunderstand a bit and you gotta really put your mind to it. It does not flow well, like the sentences and the way that you are assimilating the story. So that is also important to note, guys, that the writing is not really very good writing. We're talking about the book Lords of the Lands. This is the book in question, and this is the passage. I'm going to play this part of the audiobook so you can also hear it for yourself. And hi to everybody in the chat, by the way. DRL says, I did read the book and enjoyed it, but did not remember any abstain stuff pop out. I see. So yeah, because you have read the whole thing, you haven't seen, I mean, you didn't come to the conclusion that the whole internet and me came to. And that is why I feel so bad about this, guys, because this is not supposed to be happening, I am going to check it at the best of my ability from now on, every little thing, and not just trust the site that is supposed to write stuff that are objective for everyone, because the site does seem to be anti-woke, or at least to represent things, in an objective light. But in this case, they did drop the book to me, and then we all dropped the book. And Demion and everyone else that actually covered the story, we all dropped the book because we jumped to conclusions. Now, that doesn't mean that this book is perfect, and that what actually is happening in this passage of the book is great, because it isn't, but we're going to reach that point as well. So quick look at your comments, guys, and we are continuing. Hi to Quinn. He says, oh good, Gary, the difference between you and the lefties is you can admit when you're wrong. Context being everything, those same lefties would see that passage as we thought anyway. That is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yes, well, I cannot stick to something that's just not true. And even though this author may be woke and he may be, right, obviously he is woke because it's obvious by the things that he already wrote previously as well, and actually by this passage as well, and we are going to explain, of course, why, but he did not write story. P something story. He didn't write that. So at least we have this. That's the good news. He did not write this, but he did write something. Hi to Pat. It's good to admit when we are wrong. Yes, of course. It serves no one to not admit when we are wrong. So I love to deliver the truth. I'm all interested in the truth. So if I didn't deliver the actual truth, then I'm gonna correct myself. I want to thank two people in the comments in particular. Epic Cthulhu. I'm sorry if I butcher that. It's really hard sometimes to read your names, guys, but Epic Cthulhu and Mustard Puddle. These guys both pointed out to me that this is actually something else. And I didn't believe it at first, because there's a lot of people on the internet that, chase their own thing, and the fact that somebody's correcting me doesn't mean that they're actually right. So I also have to be aware of that as a creator. I can't be just like, oh, of course you're right. I have no idea what's happening. So I had to get the copy of the book in PDF and the audio and read it and hear it myself. And then I was like, okay, I was wrong. I really wanted to say a big thanks to Epic Cthulhu and Mustard Puddle for this, because they're the ones that actually made me really check the passage itself, the passage that is relevant for me to show you, and I'm going to also, of course, play it so you can hear it. Okay, this is the whole thing. Right, okay, let's hear it, let's hear it.
The lady asks us to bear, she whispered. Tell me, what was his name? I don't know, said Alisande, ashamed she hadn't thought to ask. Rosamond stroked the boy's face, letting her fingertips drift over his eyes to close them. Her head tilted to the side, as if listening to a faint whisper on the wind. His name was Balagur, she said, a small smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Such a sweet child. As a boy, he would dance with his 3 sisters with a crown of mayberries at his brow, and never complained once. His father drank too much, and beat him until his mother put nightshade in the man's porridge. Balagur hoped to ride with the knights errant next spring. And, yes, he would have been a fine knight, and earned his spurs in less than a year, his knight's oath sworn on the midsummer's morn. He would meet a boy with a smile that lit up the world, their love so great that all Britannia's poets would weep as they penned exquisite odes in its celebration. You saw all this? Asked Alisande, tears streaming down her face. Rosamond nodded, her face gaunt with sorrow as she looked around the pavilion. I see them all, the untrodden paths, the lives unlived, the joys and sorrows never felt, all gone now, fading into the mist of a future that will never be. Alisande put her arms around Lady Rosamond. None of them will ever know the burden you bear, she said, but I do.
Basically, guys, those 2 women find the body of the boy. One of the women, obviously, has the ability to see the lives that were not lived. I mean, what will happen if this boy actually lived? And then she started to explain that he will become a fine knight in less than a year, which means that he will still be a boy, and he will find another boy and they will have love, which is very epically described. Now, that means that we are talking about not a P something story, but we're talking about a young man with another young man. But here's the thing, guys, it's not specified on what age they are. So this is not, I mean, the fact that it's not a P story doesn't mean that it's appropriate. I don't think it is appropriate. It does not fit with the whole thing. And when I spoken to Chainsword, he actually said it best, and I asked him if I can share what he said with you. So I'm going to do that right now. This is what he said, and it's just spot on, perfect. We gotta think about this, guys. So he said, I think that the ambiguity surrounding this issue, whether due to poor writing or an underlying message, is concerning enough on its own. The fact that people interpret it in various ways speaks volumes. Additionally, there will always be those who twist interpretations to suit their own agendas. Yes, I would say this is what happened with the site because they made a sensation out of this, and of course, they're getting clicks out of this. You know, at least when there's bad enough stories that are sensational because they're so bad, they could just cover that. There's no need to make up stuff up from your butt. That does not help anyone. I continue, so it's worth to point it out. As far as I know, the age is nowhere specified. Yes, it isn't. This is just what it is about this boy. Furthermore, even if we set aside the interpretation aspect, the mere inclusion of a mention about teenagers having such relationships in a book about fantasy knights living in a regressive medieval society based on Arthurian legends feels out of place and disconnected from both the lore and common sense. So my stance remains that the entire book is a form of a virtue signaling and promotes a woke agenda. And all those things that we do know that are considered forceful, not naturally integrated into the story, but forcefully. And in this case, we see a scene where two women are talking over this dead boy's body, and what does she see? So she sees a very young teenage boy having a very, very romantic, passionate love with another teenage boy, as we assume by the ways that this is written. It's always a bit disturbing where very young kids have any types of, love relationships. But in this case, it really seems that it's out of nowhere that she will see exactly that. She could see that he will become a knight and have glorious battles. That's more to the, on the common sense part instead of what we got, actually. So yeah, I think that Chainsword puts this in the best way possible. Very objective, very solid. Just makes a lot of sense to me. I'm gonna read your comments, guys. The passage, you can always read it. The one thing actually is that Chainsword did not think that this is a P story. He actually didn't interpret it like that initially. So kudos to him. Yeah, kudos to him. But you can see how we all did that. I mean, most of us did that because of the part that was cut out. And yes, he will be a fine knight. And as I said, this immediately points, like, to me, it means that he is a grown-up ass man. I assume that he will be grown when he is a knight. But no, the story says that he's gonna be a knight in less than a year, and he's still a boy now. So it's really looks like a relationship between two people at the same age. So that is pretty much clear. If he becomes a knight errant from Square, he would be 18. That's a good information, DRL. And you read a lot of fantasy and 40k. I mean, I know that you know about those things. I just think that it would so random. It's so random to say he would meet a random boy. It's a sentence which plays no significant part of the rest of the segment, and this character is dead. Yeah, exactly. So it's important to note that is how you differentiate between what is woke, what is suitable, and what is not. How a writer will write something about relationships or genders or whatever, what's the context, how it's integrated, does it impact the quality of the story, does it matter? Actually, it doesn't matter. So that's the issue, it doesn't matter. And this character is dead, so matters less, even less. I mean, we know that this boy, he would live, and we can assume that he would become a knight. Okay, then he can have whatever love life. Is that relevant to his knightlyhood, whateverhood? No, it's not relevant. What he's doing in his personal life is not relevant to anything. I mean, to the whole world. It is a time of war. People die, obviously, like we see here. Young people lose their lives. The last thing that anyone else wants to think is relationships, basically. I mean, it's hard to have that and have a glorious love when everything that is surrounding you wants to kill you. So that is how we differentiate if something is woke or not. When it's not woke, if whatever is the topic here, whether that be some a gender of someone or whatever, it's integrated in the story the way that it matters. I have to give you an example, but once again, the example is from that episode of Xena, and it's at least it's a fantasy setting as well. So here we are. It was about a beauty contest, and Xena had to enter undercover to find out who is killing the contestants, because actually there was someone that was killing the girls themselves, and she had to put herself in danger in order to find out. And what was the thing there? Well, there was one character that was actually transgender there, and that was in 1995 or 1996, because it was the second season. So imagine 1996, most people had no idea what that is, you know. So in 1996, that happens. This character is put there as one of the contestants. And Xena, while she's investigating, she actually finds out that, this contestant is a man underneath. And he's like, and I have to call him he because that's how it was, the dynamic then. He was like, well, what to do. I want to participate too, or something like that. And Xena's like, okay, fine, you can participate. She was very understanding. And then the whole thing, the investigation went by, and Xena won, but she didn't appear because she was already, uh, she was already caught on to the whole plot and who was killing the girls and all of that, and she had to quit. And then the second runner-up won, then she quit because of the whole thing. Then the third, the second, and at the end of the day, the end of the whole the whole thing, this transgender character actually won, and there was no one else to win, so they won. And that's it. I mean, I don't know how to call her, him. It was him, especially in the understandings and how we view things back then. It was still him, but she won, and it was pretty interesting. It was kind of comical, but in a good way. It was not like to make fun. It was more like of a, oh, well, great, you get to live your moment. You won the contest, and it's fine. I mean, nobody said that, but it was obvious. But it's really hard to explain. But the way that this character was, it wasn't like a main character. The whole story was going in this whole time, and this was just a little thing that was integrated there. But it was natural and understandable. It didn't felt forced, and did impact the story at the end, because someone that you didn't expect it actually won the contest that this whole episode was about. So it did matter in ways, in different ways. It did matter. It was interesting. It was more original, if you will. But in most woke stories that today's times, the integration is not like that. It's just very out of the blue. It doesn't matter to the story. So instead of having an impact and matter, it's quite the opposite. So it's ironic if you're author and you want to put something in, something like that into your story, but you make it so insignificant, you just do a disservice anyway. So you're not actually doing, a good thing. Yeah. So yeah, you gotta think about those things. Because I'm sure, and I saw that many times, people cannot make the difference between real, storytelling, and when you can enter such elements and how to make them matter when they really matter to the story, and when they don't matter but you just still push them, and people feel like they're ambushed by this because all of a sudden you just don't expect it. You just feel ambushed by this, and you see that it doesn't fit the way that it's done. So who is this catering to, and how is this honoring whatever inclusion they want to put in the books? It isn't. That's the point. It isn't. Okay, gotta read what you said. Okay, DRL says there was a lot of female knights, what was very odd, but the tone seemed more. Wait, female knights, what was very odd, but the tone seemed more of old Britannia lore, and the latest. Wait, I lost it somehow. Ah, and the latest, what was darker? Uh-huh. Prophecies of Britannia like priestess, so would be more lowery speak. And that's really irrelevant, DRL. The point is what was the actual prophecy, which was very, very vivid, by the way. Britannia having female knights, what no one questioned and was just the norm, caused the upset. RG the review of the book when it came out. He did. Gotta see that. Okay, if that is the case, it would fit right in the context of Warhammer War Team. The love and the light are what pushes you to fight on and refuse to die out. Yeah. So yeah, you agree? Uh-huh. Yeah, but not really. Not really, because it isn't. Still badly written. What TF? A boy knight, grimdark, but you skip square time? Squire time? Yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't think that you can become a knight like at 18, but that's another topic, really. That's another topic. It's irrelevant. Okay. To me, is that galloping prose that Graham also has. It assumes that it paint a picture, but each sentence lacks just a few extra words which would complete the image in a better way. Just me though. Well, you are a fan of Tolkien, so you know better about writing. But yeah, to me, it doesn't flow very well at all. So in terms of a style of writing, is not my cup of tea in any case. Oh, okay. So also, in general, guys, I want to just address real quick some of the arguments that I got when I made the video. I mean, some people, firstly, they mistaken this for 40k. Some people pointed out that it's fantasy. I said that it's fantasy in my video, but who watches the video listens to me, Anyway, it's fantasy, okay. It's not the grimdark, because mostly before even people, like I've said, before even they checked if this is fantasy or not, they were like, it's the 40k, it's dark, what do you expect? Do you know how Inquisitor got their way with the young boys and I don't know what book? Quinn, you know what book? But yeah, one of the very first books. And I asked Quinn to verify. He said that's canon, and I'm like, okay. But it is written in a negative light. So at least when we talked, Quinn and I, and in general with other people, Deathwing, thank you. We have this impression, and we have this proof. I mean, the proof that never such a thing, if it's a P story actually, was written in a positive light. That's totally different because it can world built, as much as I don't like it personally, because I don't want to read in my fantasy books about such things at all. We get it. We know that Slaanesh is there. We know that he feeds on such things, and she lives for them, so to speak. She exists for them and because of them, but it's not in our face. As long as I saw what I have read about noise marines and whatever has to do with Slaanesh is not that much in our face. But I mean, yeah. And even if it if there are, and obviously there is such stories about the Inquisitors and who knows what else, it's always written in a negative light. So that passes as world building and is not a woke thing. Okay. Because many people say now that 40k has always been woke, which is ridiculous. That's not the case at all. People don't know what is woke, I guess, again. I mean, what is happening here? Uh, I just I just can't believe where we are, really. Because before it was just, there was inclusion all over the place, but all of a sudden some companies will decide to just to push the narrative that there wasn't, and we were all bigots, and we were like this John Travolta meme, like this, like what's happening here, what's happening here. Ah, so yeah, and I personally, as I said before, want to take a look at some of the other things that are considered woke, but look at them myself to make sure what they actually are. So there's something about transgender orcs or something about transgender necrons. I want to check those things where they are and analyze them, see what they really are, and not again think that they're there, because the way that Bricky, you know, when Bricky was talking about the female custodies, and he was like, are you new here? You haven't read your books? This and that is woke and this and that. And I'm pretty sure that, especially about the Necros, as far as I read something about that, because some of you told me, but once again, I have to check myself, that it was something about, you know, some Necron just switching bodies, and it's like a female metal body, something like that. I gotta check myself. Not gonna, make statements before that. But yeah, the point is that if that's the case, really doesn't seem like anything that could be equivalent to what we understand about switching genders. That's ridiculous. In the Necro world, there's no such concepts like we have. They don't care about anything that has to do with the reproductive system and how you feel. They freaking have no souls. Okay, they're totally different um, beings. So by that logic, you can say that anything is anything. But yeah, that's why I gotta check. Woke is a relatively new term. When 40k started, it didn't exist. Yeah, that too. There was a ogre model with the, is that a bear or breast? Because the heart in the chat hides it. Dress and rolling pin? What? Okay, that's ridiculous. I gotta see. But in any case, guys, I'm gonna try to cover everything that I possibly can around this, because it's important, and it's extremely important to me to bring you only the most accurate possible and the most objective possible view on things to the best of my ability. Of course, there's always going to be someone that sees something else or just doesn't agree for their own reasons. We can't be all like mind synced, but the point is that we should not be a hive mind like the woke are a hive mind, and just to blindly go and believe. And uh, you know I also seen other creators that were speaking of other things that were considered woke, but then there's some things that were not actually that woke, but they were already with the pitchforks and everything. So there are some like small cases, rare cases, but there are some cases where I do see from my side how people can jump on things and actually misjudge them and not be objective about that. And I don't want to be that, never, ever. And I'm thinking to keep that video up so you can see what happens. And actually, that would be my opinion if that was actually true, if this was a peace story. So if yeah, that video, if Jesus, if it is to be up, I like it to stay up for that comparison. And because my opinion still stands if that ever happens. That is yeah, that is how I will react. But hopefully GW will not go there. And I really want them to make a freaking review of all of their authors and see what they're writing. Maybe they cannot keep track of all of the stories, but they really should somehow, because if you give the author so much freedom and they interject their own politics into the stories they are writing, modern stuff that are cannot be relevant or adequately exist in some kind of a equivalent form to what we see now, what we experience now, that's absolutely ridiculous. This is not professional, guys. It is not professional for any writer to be so influenced by his own world that he cannot detach himself and actually write about the freaking fantasy, sci-fi, whatever universe that he is supposed to write for. You know how Amazon ruined Rings of Power? It's the same thing. They just put on everything that they thought that we are having or whatever. Our world is diverse. Our world is. You are doing a story about the world of Tolkien. Okay, white elves, pale, long ears, blonde hair. Like, what is this hard about this concept? Are you going to be discriminative against, elves now? What is this? Because when they are putting another color of elf there, they are deciding to discriminate their own source material and just say, no rules, everybody's going to look like whatever. Yeah, disrespecting the initial lore. And when the woke side says, what is your problem? It doesn't matter. Well, if it doesn't matter, why are we doing it? Huh? Why we're doing it? If it doesn't matter, what is it to you? Oh, this is going to mess you up or what? Oh, you're such a pussy. I'm sorry, this is a straw man argument. Uh, it's just unbelievable, really. You're not doing it. We are not doing it because it ruins, it disrespects the original lore, whatever the author wanted. His vision is his vision, end of story, full stop. You do that. You take his vision and you put it on screen and to the best of your ability, and you do not change a fundamental core, the fundamental core of the characters and what makes them these characters. You just don't touch that. It's sacred. So that is it. If a character is black as night, he will be black as night on screen. End of story. If a character is white as a rock, as a white marble rock, it should be exactly like that on screen. It's just that. I mean, why are we even talking about those things these days? It's stupid. It really is. Now you can take some liberties when you do fantasy, other fantasies. I mean, like Xena didn't have any books before that. They did some liberties there. I mean, they literally chose black actors to play Greek people. But back then it didn't matter because it was a fantasy setting. It was like a totally different world. I don't know how to explain. Just all those actors, they were just great. They fit somehow. They were so great, these actors. So the way that it was done there, it was just naturally just flew. It wasn't forced. But now they just want to do that to historical dramas or documentaries, and that's a crime. That's a crime. You cannot change history, alter how people think, and all of that. So that's why we are fighting against that, the misinformation to begin with. So yeah, I'm going to keep the site, that dark place. I'm going to keep the news. I mean, keep an eye on the news and see what I can cover from there. But I'm going to check as much as I can because I don't want such thing to happen. As much as this author writes whatever he writes in a woke manner, and he wants to put his own thoughts in the book, and that's not professional and so on. That doesn't mean that we can just jump on the bandwagon and think that he did something that he didn't do. Actually, hold on. So this was the screenshot that I took. I'm moving myself now. This is the screenshot that I took from the original tweet. I don't know who Hugh Wyatt is. I don't know. Hugh Wyatt something. If you think the outrage about women nights was great, just wait when they read the Lords of the Lance. So if this came from him, I mean, I would ask him, did he cut that out or somebody gave that to him already cut out, so he also thought that this is what we thought that it is? Who knows? Okay, guys, so that's gonna be it for this topic. I'm gonna edit this video, like I've said, when it's done, and so it can be like a more easy to watch way. But we gotta be careful once again because we don't wanna become like the other side, and that is it. That's the that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. And Dear Ivy says, that is admirable, and I think it's the right thing. There was a with the beard dress at the rolling pit. Now I read it. 23rd May Warhammer Video Game Showcase. Okay, Daryl, you gotta remind me on Instagram. Indeed, when we just change a work of literature, we are lying to ourselves. What we have is not what is written, for good or worse. How far we go with changes will determine how accurate we are. Absolutely. You could make a movie like Titus romance on motorbikes and sunglasses, but trying to be to depict something seriously is very different. Yes, and also because some people did mention George R. R. Martin. He writes horrible things in his books, and he goes very far sometimes, and I do not appreciate that. I just don't like such stuff. But at least as far as I know, he also writes everything in a negative light, in a disgusting light, negative, disgusting. So at least you know that he's not glorifying it, and it is bad. So yeah, and then when you adapt that on screen, you don't need to actually show everything because the public does not need to see everything in a very distasteful manner. There's something like a tasteful manner, so you gotta present things the best way that you can possibly present those things, and not just like Spartacus show 10 minutes of guts just flying on screen, or show horrible R scenes even when you least expect them. That is just very distasteful and disgusting to me when that happened. That's why I stopped watching Spartacus, no matter if Lucy Lawless, Xena herself, was there the whole time. But I will never forget some of the things that I saw there. They are just scar my brain for life. I just don't appreciate that at all. And in Game of Thrones, although there's a lot of bad stuff, a lot of time they don't actually show it. They don't. They can make it unsettling and horrible enough, like that scene with Sansa, and oh Jesus, I don't wanna remember it, but yeah, that scene with Sansa, for example, they didn't show a freaking thing but we knew, and it was horrible, horrifying, and still scarred us in some way, but at least we didn't see anything. That's a lot more tastefully done. When something bad happens, you don't always need to show it on slow freaking motion and just be there to shock you and whatever. That's not quality. Shock is not quality. If you're really surprised, but it's like surprise but with a substance, that is different. When it's like in the storytelling, when it's integrated in some kind of a natural way. But when every freaking second of Spartacus was extreme pictures of so many things, of all kinds of things. Jesus. Yeah, okay, one example. I'm just gonna give you one example because I don't know if you ever watched Spartacus. A lot of people watched it, but yeah. Uh, for example, you see a scene of, like I said, the guts and the 10 minutes, the guy is falling, the head is falling for 10 minutes. The camera just sits there, just showing every drop of disgusting stuff that you can possibly imagine. And in the next scene, some people are just talking. And in the next scene, the camera just pans to some like prison cells or something, and you see two men, something, something, something. You just see that. Yeah. In the next scene, let's say it's, I don't know what. Imagine another R scene, or another scene with the heads flying off. Then talk, and then next scene is a smash head on the on the on the floor. But I want to say Marvel. Yeah, yeah. Jesus Christ. Okay. So no, I say no to that. I reject that and all those things. So guys, I hope to see you as soon as possible. Tomorrow I also plan a very good stream with my dear friend Kit. We're going to talk all about the Warhammer things that happened recently. He had to caught on to everything, but he did. So we can actually have a very cool and intelligent discussion, hopefully. If you like to support me, you know where. Everything's down below. My coaching services, all of that, it is down. Love ya. And see you very soon with me, the 40k Empress Scary. Bye bye.